Gang, what's up? Aaron, Canadian Looney. I think I have a couple of extra minutes. Let's get right into it. Like, share, subscribe. Let's see how many people we can gather that are concerned about Canadian federal politics. Join in the chat. That's it. Like, share, subscribe. Let's kick this off. You know the routine. Let's get it going. What? Oh, well, we tried.
Questions orales, oral questions.
Here we go. This is better.
Oh, hello. Do you have a warrant to be here?
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
WTF.
Hey everyone, quiet down. There's a bulletin on TV.
It's time for a change in this country, my friends. A real change.
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Proud to be Canadian. I am, you know I am. You know I am. I am Canadian. Come on! I love this country where I am. This land is where I make my stand.
The one we call Canadian. Canadians.
But let me ask you, Mr. Prime Minister, will there always be a Canada?
There will always be a Canada.
All right, elbows up.
Elbows up.
Hey gang, what's up? Just Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. We have issues in Canada, right? Unless you're completely head in the sand, be aware of this.
Oh, yeah.
And now, oral questions, questions orales.
Oral questions, questions orales.
Good afternoon, folks. Aaron here, Canadian Looney. Like, share, subscribe. We've got a wild show coming up. We cover a bunch of stuff that happens in the House of Commons, legacy media, in Parliament, like committee meetings especially. But then we cross over right to the question period, right on time. We don't see any of the boring statements, just the action that has actually happening, like in the House of Commons, in the committee meetings, all the head-to-head stuff that they don't show you in question period, which we do show, right? We jump right into it. Anyhow, let's kick this off. We've got the Muddy Ogo here on our plate. We've got a full committee meeting in this one. It's super interesting. I haven't seen it all, but I know it's interesting. Let's get right into it. Aaron, Canadian Looney, like, share, subscribe. Thank you all for joining me. It's great to see the gang back. If you're around checking out the live video, jump into the chat. We've got an amazing community there. I think you'll have some fun. Watch that. Anyhow, right into the frontline politics. Let's go. Aaron, Canadian Looney, like, share, subscribe. Thank you all for joining us. We've got a great show planned, and we do slip right into question period, right on time. You don't need to leave. We cover that too. Anyhow, let's kick it off with the pre-show. The best one I think anybody is doing online live. Let's check it out. Let's go. Big promise. Let's see if we can deliver. Let's take a peek. In Canadian federal politics, the Canucks are represented by two separate yet unequal groups. The globalists who sold out and the opposition trying to salvage a country. These are their stories.
Splitting my time with Ms. Jansen at the 3-minute mark. Although I was not in attendance at the last committee meeting where you appeared, I watched with interest your testimony where you told members that Stellantis had been the one to propose redactions to you. After which, of course, Stellantis outlined in a strongly worded letter they did not recommend or suggest any redactions to the CIF agreements we received. Today, you come here and say that it was your honest understanding when you provided that testimony to us. You also said today that officials proactively redacted the documents before going to Stellantis. That's very different than what you presented to committee at your first appearance. And my question for you is this: who told you to lie to this committee?
Great, thank you for your question. I'll start by just saying that I've also reflected since my last appearance before you, and it's clear to me that I could have been much clearer about the redaction process, and I regret that the committee was left with a mistaken impression. I certainly had no intention to misrepresent. I am happy today to provide as much clarity as I can and answer those questions. What I can say is that no one asked me to lie. What I represented to the committee, the part that was accurate, is that Stellantis did consent to the redactions that were in the version of the redacted document that was shared with you. What I can also say is that my understanding at the time, which was ultimately incorrect, is I had understood that that Stellantis had initially proposed those redactions.
You understood that. You're the deputy minister. It took Stellantis writing a strongly worded letter in response to what they heard you tell this committee. So we were not only the ones under this mistaken assumption that that you presented to this committee, but it was also Stellantis. Your obligation as a public servant is to Parliament, and yet today you continue to represent the fact that you were simply trying to protect their commercial interests by not presenting this committee with the unredacted documents. In fact, in response to my questions last week, Ms. Perusa actually said they were also the ones who proposed that we be given the unredacted documents. So who told you to refuse an order from this committee after it was unanimously agreed to by all members that we would call for the unredacted documents?
Great, thank you for that question. First I'd say is that the right of parliamentarians to see documents of the kind requested is fundamental to their ability to hold the government, to Parliament, and to Canadians. As part of our regular work, the department does come into possession at infrequent times of confidential information. We are asked at different times to produce those documents. And the process that is typically involved is in...
Mr. Jennings, my question was, who told you not to provide the unredacted documents? It's a simple question. Or were you the one that made that decision as the deputy minister?
The process that we followed was...
I want to know who made the decision, because I'm challenging the process. We're parliamentarians. Actually, I'm going to end there, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleague.
I have exactly the same question. I mean, you make it very clear that your commitment to Stellantis seems to be much stronger than it is to parliamentarians. So I have to ask the exact same question. Who on earth would have told you that you needed to make sure we didn't get to see unredacted documents, which is what was asked for by the entire committee?
So what I can say, which is what I said at my last committee appearance here, was that we try to strike a balance in terms of providing documents that parliamentarians are asking for.
We do have that. We do have that testimony. But what we're looking for now is who would have told you that Stellantis is the one that gets the priority here in this case?
I never said there was a priority.
No, but it seems to be in that
a balance between trying to provide Parliament what it needs with the commercially confidential clauses.
Who would have decided that parliamentarians do not get an unredacted document? That's the basic question here.
No one ever made that decision.
Well, somebody did, because that's what we got.
What we proposed in the letter to this committee was an approach that was adopted in past parliaments where unredacted versions of contracts were shared with parliamentarians. This worked and was accepted by past committees of Indu, Envy, and we were proposing
excuse me, I have
the
very
exact
short
same thing
time. I know you talked about that last time, that, this is how it's been done before. That's not what we asked for at this committee. What we asked for was the unredacted documents. Or, sorry, the documents that as we needed them. The entire committee asked for that. And you're saying, well, the other committees, they accepted this, so that's why this decision was made. Is that your testimony now?
My testimony is that is what I proposed to this committee.
So you proposed it? You proposed that.
I proposed that through a process of consulting with Stellantis. We both agreed to sharing a redacted version of the contract.
Which put Stellantis ahead of parliamentarians.
Since that time, Stellantis and ourselves have both shared and agreed to share an unredacted version of the contract. The document is fully available to you now.
Yeah.
And we look forward
After we fought like crazy.
To be able to answer any questions.
Sorry, that is our time. We now have Ms. Rochford, please, for 6.
We thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Jennings, for being present today. So before we go any further, I'd just like to come back to what the contract says in terms of the consent that's required. Would you be able to read the section in the contract that indicates that consent is required?
I'm going to turn to one of my colleagues. I don't have the actual contract in front of me, so I'll turn to Stephanie.
Thank you.
Are we allowed to read the sections of the contract now?
It's been in the public testimony before. I've verified.
So we're allowed to read out of the contract then?
I suspect Ms. Rochford was more making a point and not asking for a specific statement from the
Correct.
contract.
Yes.
While we continue.
So in general, what does the section 16 in the contract on the consent required indicate?
Of the confidentiality clause in our agreement, and this is standard language in our agreements, includes that the party shall keep, each party, so that's both Stellantis and the government, shall keep confidential and shall not consent without the other party's agreement to disclose the information contained within that agreement.
And my impressions are as well that there are certain acts of government that you are bound to as well respect. And would you be able to name some of these acts that, as public servants, that is your obligation as you pursue your work to also respect these acts of confidentiality? I was thinking, for example, of Access to Information Act and so on, such acts.
Yeah, so I think that's a good example. So I guess maybe the best way to answer that is just to say that this government takes any obligations it has in terms of confidentiality very seriously, and that is under all contracts that we have and under all existing federal legislation and laws. Access to information is another example, but also clauses that exist in many agreements we have with companies. As I outlined earlier, is that we need this commercially confidential information to be able to do the proper due diligence. At the end of the day, it's because we're essentially trying to ensure that the investments that are made on behalf of Canadians are done with the best prudence as possible. And in return, the companies seek that they trust the government to not share that information without having their consent to do so. The access to information law is different in terms of how it's structured versus the how it is in contract, but ultimately the consent of the companies is required to be able to share those information either publicly in ATIP or in this case with Stellantis with the condition that it be shared with this committee in camera.
In my understanding as well that such contracts, they have terms and clauses that dictate how funds are disbursed, milestones, for example. Would that be the case with this particular contract as well?
That is typically how contracts of this size would flow out. Is at the end of the day, these are multi-year projects, so there typically would be flows and payments would be made against expenditures that are made by companies.
As well, employment targets would typically form part of such contracts?
It would be certainly typical in terms of what would be there. So benefits, which as examples, would be jobs, it would be capital expenditure investments, it would be R&D investments, IP investments. So these are the types of things that are typical in contracts. And we do see which hopefully you'll understand, is at the end we seek to maximize the benefits to Canada as we make investments. And in addition to benefits, we also have clauses related to non-performance against those benefits, and that's also typically found in these kinds of contracts.
But I was satisfied, Mr. Chair, in reading through the contract that those clauses were there, and I found that a very good, well-structured contract. And I did want to come back to a comment made by Mr. Patzer. I thought it was an excellent question he asked at the last one of our last meetings. He did say, in Clause 16.1, does that supersede Parliament, or does Parliament supersede Clause 16.1? I think that was an excellent question, or Mr. Béchard answered. He says in Clause 16 in the contract, it's a typical confidentiality clause that we expect our public servants to try to respect as they do their work, but those clauses do not override the die power of certain bodies, including, as you pointed out, Madame Janssen, the courts and Parliament, to compel the production of documents. But in trying to understand die power, I've gone to look, and it does come with certain obligations, right? And I guess as we do this discussion, review the contract in camera, that is in a sense die power being exercised. And I guess my question is directed here to Mr. Bedard. Would that be proper, Mr. Chair, to do that?
Sorry, I should have mentioned as before, as I mentioned before, I've paused your time. As I mentioned last time, Mr. Bedard is with us. Feel free to direct questions directly to him.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
In the contract, and as you paraphrase my evidence from the last meeting, those confidentiality clauses do not bind the courts, do not bind Parliament, do not bind bodies that have the power to send for records. That's just, you cannot override by contract a legal power. Now, just as court, the party can make a request so that certain information not be disclosed publicly, a witness, a party before Parliament can make a request that certain information be kept confidential. So that will be, for example, only for the consideration of members at the in-camera sessions, or that there may be special safeguards that are put in place for the consultation of the documents. But that is at the discretion of the committee. The committee has to consent to it. Ultimately, the committee has the power to send for records and may insist on the production of unredacted documents. And then it's for the committee to decide as it sees fit in terms of distribution.
Thanks. That is our time. Mr. Lemaire, welcome back to OGO. 6 minutes, sir.
Merci, Monsieur. End products analysis of industry. However, how, and this was before your mea culpa, how did the decision you make can impact how other companies, multinational companies who may want to invest in the Quebec and Canadian battery sector, because there are resources there? Maybe these people fear that confidential information may be disclosed, and has that impacted your decision? I'm not sure if I can entirely understand your question. Let's say you publicly disclose a contract. Will others also fear that they will be under the same spotlight as Stellantis now? When people do business, we should have learned from the past. We should learn from what is happening now. What kind of message does it send to others, including investors? I will answer to the best of my capabilities. As I have said a few times, it's a balancing game. We need to balance the fact that there is a lot of sensitive information with the fact that Parliament should have access to the information.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Jennings, at the last committee, you basically threw Canadians under the bus, you threw Stellantis under the bus, and you threw the previous deputy minister under the bus by saying that he's the one who issued this contract, and that is. But you keep saying that it's a standard contract. Is this still the type of contract that your department is going to put out going forward? This very same contract? Will you use the same template going forward?
Thank you for that question, Chair. I'll answer the question by saying that we do have a standard template that we start off for contracts with any company, and then we modify it based on the types of investments that are being proposed and the types of commitments that we're trying to secure. So there is modifications from a standard contract. So we don't ever take an exact contract and share it with another company. We essentially modify it based on the sector they're in and the types of investments that they're proposing to do and the types of commitments that we're trying to secure.
Do you accept that Parliament supersedes, the Access to Info Act?
I accept that Parliament can get access to documents it requests. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair, I've got a matter of hand motion I would like to move, if that's okay. I'd like to move that the committee classify as public the redacted copy of CIF agreement number 813-816251 and amendment agreement number 1 and amendment agreement number 2.
Great. All right. Did you wish to speak on that? I have
speaking
this. I have Mr. Seaback and Ms. Khalid.
Yeah, absolutely. I would just like to make a couple of remarks on it because, we had Stellantis come here and say that all the redactions are for the commercially sensitive information, and we've had this confirmation from these folks here today, but also last week, that it's the commercially sensitive information that is redacted, and the minister has been clear that she is going to, or that she is suing Stellantis, and we know that in court proceedings that these types of things will be made public anyway. So I think that it was only reasonable for the document to be made public. But of course, I'm only asking for the redacted copy. I'm not asking for the unredacted copy.
Mr. Seaback.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think a summary of what we've heard at committee so far is very important and relevant to why this motion should be supported, and I hope it's going to be supported unanimously by all parties. What we heard very clearly when Stellantis was here is that the whole contract isn't commercially sensitive. That's on the record. That's what the Stellantis representatives said when they were at committee. I then asked her if all of the commercially sensitive materials had been redacted in the redacted version of the contract that we received. And she said, yes, that is what has happened. And we know that these redactions are what the Government of Canada would consider to have been commercially sensitive because they were the ones that did the redactions. We've now figured that out. We heard it was a collaborative thing, but no. In fact, it was the department that did the redactions, and clearly they would have redacted what was ever considered to be commercially sensitive to the government. So what we have now is a document that is not, the commercially sensitive parts of that document are not going to be available to the public. And I will echo what Mr. Patzer said. As a former litigation lawyer, what I can tell you is this. The minister says she's going to sue Stellantis. As part of that lawsuit, the first stage of that is going to be the drafting of the pleadings. And in the pleadings, they are required to outline their case. And in those pleadings, outlining their case will include citing sections of the contract that they are relying on for the breach. This would include things like the job guarantee, because the minister is alleging that that was breached. If you're going to allege the jobs guarantee was breached, you're going to have to cite that section of the contract in your pleadings. So that is going to be public shortly, as the minister has said that she is going to sue Stellantis. As you move on in a lawsuit, you move to documentary production. And given that this is the document that the lawsuit is based on, this document will be produced through the documentary production process. Lawsuits are public. That's how our lawsuits work in this country. So this document in its entirety without redactions will likely be produced in the lawsuit. So what we're asking for the committee to do now is release the redacted version which protects all of the alleged commercially sensitive material. So you have to ask yourself, why would this not be supported? I suspect my colleagues across the way are not going to support this motion, and you have to ask yourself why, right? So if the government itself redacted what they thought was commercially sensitive, Stellantis has said the commercially sensitive materials have been redacted. The only thing they're trying to do by not releasing these documents is to protect themselves from the embarrassment of what's in the contract. So I want to be very clear with Canadians on this. This contract is an embarrassment. And these Liberals are going to probably seek to stop the production of this contract to protect themselves from some of the very embarrassing decisions they made in the contract. They're probably going to filibuster this motion, hoping that the Christmas adjournment will come and that they can once again hide the details of this contract from Canadians. On that, Mr. Chair, I would suggest that if they do decide to filibuster, if the Liberals do decide to filibuster to block the release of this contract to protect themselves, perhaps we should extend the meeting on Thursday. I'd be more than happy to sit till midnight or later in order to get this document released. I leave that in your discretion. And with that, Mr. Chair, I am urging my colleagues from the Liberal Party to not hide this contract from Canadians and agree with this motion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I have Ms. Khalid.
Thank you. Thank you,
the
Chair.
speaking list is open. Go ahead, ma'am. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. To be clear, work always comes first. I am more than happy, and I know my colleagues are also more than happy to sit for as long as we need, for whatever day it is, to make sure that the work of this committee gets done, to make sure that Canadians are well served. Absolutely not a problem. I just had a question, and actually, before I get to my question, I want to be very clear. I think all members on this committee have provided effective scrutiny as to what has happened here. I don't think any of us have been defending anything. We have been fulfilling our duty and our role as members of the mighty Ogo. And making sure that government is held to account, to make sure that in the future that we do governance better, that we enter into contracts better as well. As members may know, we agreed to make sure that we had this meeting today on the topic that it was today. So I think it's very disingenuous for members to make accusations against other members on this committee about their intentions. Mm-hmm. With that, I just wanted to seek a point of clarification from you, Chair. I know that one of the Conservative members had moved a motion on December 4th, and I just wanted to know, how is it different from what Mr. Patzer has moved today as a matter at hand? And then also, what happens to that motion if we dispose of this today? I mean, I would think that it's basically the same thing from my understanding.
It wasn't moved. It was only read into the record, so it's not moved. So that's kind of moot point.
Is it the same motion, Chair?
It's different, but...
It sounded the same. But
Can it be circulated?
Yeah, can we circulate what exactly Mr. Patzer has moved today?
Do you have that in writing?
Just to understand.
But it's regardless. It's not because that one wasn't moved. It's not the same. So normally the rules are you can't bring in the same one.
Chair, so the only, I'm not questioning whether that can come or go or what have you. I just wanted to know, does this then remain on notice for members to move at a later time, or if this motion today is passed, that it would then become moot? Okay.
Probably, well, I would assume it becomes moot because I can't imagine if this one passes someone else moving it, but because it's on notice, it can't be moved, I assume.
Yeah. Because basically the same. But that's it, Chair. I don't have any other remarks. Thank you.
Right. Seeing no one else on the list, we'll call for a vote, please.
Mr. Gasparro?
Yes.
Ms. Khalid?
Yes.
Madame Rochefort?
Oui.
Ms. Sodds?
Yes.
Ms. Bloch?
Absolutely.
Ms. Jansen?
Yes.
Mr. Patzer?
Yes.
Monsieur Lemire?
En faveur.
Yeas pour 8, 8, and nays contre 0.
Passes. We are now on to Ms. Sudds for 5 minutes, please.
I think I'm next.
Oh, I apologize, Mr. Gasparo.
I'm devastated, Chair.
I will be apologizing and resigning in the House of Commons later today. You're right.
So, thank you for coming again. So When we look to Stellantis appearing before this committee previously, there was obviously a lot of discussion surrounding their comments that the government actually recommended the redactions being made. Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion around here. Can you describe how this redaction process unfolds generally?
Sure. So the general. So thank you for that question, Chair. So the general way it functions is really within the confidentiality clauses of the agreements, which are typically that we need to have consent by third parties to be able to release information into either the public domain or into a parliamentary committee. And that process typically involves a back and forth discussion with the companies and the government in terms of what is what's being requested by the committee in this case, and what could be released. The role of the government is typically in this case about trying to ensure that we are as open as possible in terms of what we release, as transparent as possible with the committees, while also respecting and the right of protecting commercially confidential information, which is important for the companies that shared it with us in trust. There are occasions where companies will will offer redactions. In this case, which I've clarified in my comments, we've had a long-standing relationship with Stellantis. We have an understanding of the types of information they feel should be redacted for commercial confidentiality reasons. And in this case, what we did for expediency's sake is really highlight for Stellantis the areas where we thought that they wish to have redacted. Stellantis at any point could have changed and offered to have further redactions. They could have asked for less redactions, but they essentially consented to the redactions that were highlighted for their consideration through that process.
Well, I'm glad you referenced that sort of joint effort because prior to their appearance, prior to Stellantis' appearance, they issued a letter that clearly laid the blame at the feet of your department for the redactions. However, in their testimony, they described the redactions as, and I quote, a joint effort in ensuring that sensitive information is maintained and confidential. Can you explain this apparent discrepancy or, frankly, flip-flop by Stellantis?
Thank you for that question, Chair. For me, the focus, which I'd rather focus on this, is really about the joint effort, because that really is fundamentally how the confidentiality clauses function in these contracts. And our experience with Stellantis, as well as with the numerous companies that we've worked with previous committees on, is really a back and forth discussion in terms of trying to meet the transparency obligations of Parliament with this confidentiality clause. I can tell you from, not because I was in the department at the time, but from speaking to people that did deal with this in the past, there's many times when the department actually pushed back on companies in terms of trying to redact too much information. So it's really about finding the right balance in terms of how do we meet the needs of Parliament without compromising what would be a mistake to do, which is really what's commercially confidential.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you talk about people, because we've spent the better part of this meeting talking about process that, quite frankly, in the grand scheme of things, the person trying to put food on their table doesn't really care about what some process in Ottawa is about. So my question now is, with the Brampton facility on pause and broader uncertainty surrounding the auto sector, what concrete steps is the government taking to help secure jobs, reassure workers, and maintain Canada's competitiveness against broader pressures from the global trading environment and the changes that are taking place?
20 seconds? Okay. So I'll give a very brief answer. Just to say that since the U.S. government and administration has really redefined the trading relationships with Canada, but with all other countries around the world, this government has put in a number of measures in place over time to try to protect jobs and protect sectors that are most at risk. I could spend, I only have 20 seconds, so I can't spend time going through them, but essentially there's been a number of measures that have been announced over time, including recent ones to increase the supports for the steel and lumber sectors.
Thank you.
Mayor for 2.5.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Third elections in order to myself. Mutual effort. Thank you. I can keep going if you wish.
Mrs. Jansen, please, for 5.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to ask some more questions about process because, of course, regular Canadians who are having a hard time putting food on their table want to make sure that the people who they sent here are worrying about the process to make sure that their tax dollars are spent well. Yeah. So you testified that only a few people within industry had seen the full unredacted contract. Is that still your evidence today?
That is still my evidence in terms of the full contract. As I mentioned a bit earlier, there are other departments sometimes that are consulted on parts of it in terms of trying to get access to their expertise to be able to do our due diligence on contracts.
Okay, so the Treasury Board officials that are responsible for spending oversight told us that agreements of this size normally undergo robust legal review before authorities are granted. Whereas Ms. Tanton said that there were no lawyers during the negotiations in the room. So I'm just wondering, does robust legal review reflect what happened in this contract?
Yeah, what I can confirm is for all contracts that are signed by ISED, there is a legal review. As Ms. Tanton testified at the last time we were here, is that there are some standard clauses that legal does not need to review for each, but when there are differences in overall, legal justice does give advice.
So in your mind, the $15 billion contract was legal. It was a robust legal review that happened on behalf of taxpayers.
Sorry, just to be clear, do you want me to turn to the Next Star agreement? The $15 billion contract is not the Stellantis agreement.
Okay. No, I'm just trying to make sure that in general, because it looks like, if you look at all these different contracts, robust isn't a word I would use, but perhaps I can send it to my colleague here. I'm going to share my time with her.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Can you advise how much time I have?
Sorry, you have 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Thank you very much. So I think what we've established here today at committee is that you agree with the law clerk's opinion that Parliament supersedes, the will of Parliament supersedes any clause that may be written into an agreement that's presented to a company that is receiving billions of dollars from taxpayers. Is that correct?
I'd be speculative for me. I'm not a lawyer. What I can say is that I respect Parliament's desire to
not
to
Parliament's
get
desire,
documents.
Parliament's right.
I respect Parliament's right to documents.
Thank you. Okay, so then I guess what I am wanting to confirm is that the clause that we've been speaking about around confidentiality is rather disingenuous to use in a contract, understanding that if a company is being offered millions, even billions of dollars of taxpayers' money, that may come under the scrutiny of Parliament at some point in time. And so I'm wondering if you would agree that it needs to be made clear to a company that's entering into a contract with the Government of Canada that when they are receiving billions of dollars of taxpayers' money, there will be another level of scrutiny applied by parliamentarians to these contracts. Would you agree with that?
So thank you, Chair, for that question. I will go back to what I said earlier, is that commercially confidential information is very important for us to do our proper due diligence. And the company's willingness to share that, for us to do that due diligence, is related to them being able to.
I'm sorry, Chair. That is not the ruling of the law clerk here today. And you continue to go back to that point, which tells me that what you say and what you intend are two very different things going forward. And so I would just caution you that we have the law clerk's opinion on the right of Parliament. You've said you agree to that. Why do you keep referring back to the commercially sensitive information that may be included in a document when we, in fact, as parliamentarians, have the right to call for that commercially sensitive information unredacted?
What I'm highlighting, as I have in my last testimony as well, is that we try to find balance in terms of what Parliament
It is not your job
is
to
right
try
and
and
legal.
find the balance. It is your job to comply with the will of parliamentarians.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thanks. We'll finish up with Ms. Suds, please, for 5.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you all for being here again with us today and answering our many questions. Now that the committee has...
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome, Commissioner. Welcome to your team. Mark Carney's ethics screen that you set up lists 103 companies, almost all of which are Brookfield companies. The Chief Operating Officer at Brookfield, Justin Bieber...
Sorry for the nasty crossover right there, but we're slipping into Michael Cooper, who is a lot more interesting than Suds. Like, she is a fool. Anyways, Michael Cooper, real interesting here. Get into this.
Told this committee that Brookfield owns 2,000 companies and businesses. Do you have a full and comprehensive list of all of Brookfield's companies and businesses?
We have a list of what the Prime Minister and his lawyers furnished us, and it is attached at Annex A to the screen.
So you do not have a full list of the 2,000 Brookfield companies?
No.
Okay. So Mark Carney holds stock options and deferred share units in Brookfield, potentially worth tens of millions of dollars. The Chief Operating Officer of Brookfield said that in respect of Carney's stock options and deferred share units, quote, as the value of Brookfield increases, the value of those instruments increase. So accordingly, it follows that as Brookfield-owned companies do well, Brookfield does well, and by extension, Mark Carney does well. So if you don't have a full list of the companies, I would put it to you that you are missing potentially a whole long list of conflicts of interest or potential conflicts of interest that Mr. Carney has with Brookfield companies.
The Annex A to the screen lists the first five companies. This is really the ones who own all sorts of other, the rest of those, directly, indirectly, or in which are dealing with those. It's clear that Mr. Carney's compensation is tied to the future compensation is tied to the success of Brookfield. But in order to avoid that he makes a decision which can be seen to benefit Brookfield and thereby indirectly himself, he has set up, first of all, he's put everything in a blind trust, but secondly, he set up the screen to make sure that any decisions that he makes regarding the five key holding companies, he is, or the ones that he knows about.
Commissioner, I think you said it exactly right, that Mr. Carney's portfolio is tied to Brookfield. As Brookfield does well, so does Mark Carney, and yet 95% of Brookfield companies are not subject to the screen. How do you explain that?
I don't know where you get these 95%. What you have before you is his statement saying these are the companies that he knows about, and he, etc. And then the entities that appear before the lobbyists, and also the entities that were defined by our office, etc. That's essentially the universe we know about, and as he himself says in Annex A in Item C, that I had no role in managing them and no direct financial interest in them. So now you're saying he has a financial interest. I don't know how you are you contradicting the statement made in Annex A?
I'm simply referencing what Mr. Bieber said, and in light of the fact that Mr. Carney has stock options and deferred share units, and I know that we saw a letter from Brookfield today that merely dismisses these companies as de minimis. Are you just taking Mark Carney and Brookfield at their word? Have you sought to get further information, given Mr. Bieber's testimony that there are these 1,900 other companies? Are you going to go back to Mr. Carney and go back to Brookfield and say, provide us with a list of those companies to determine whether or not additional companies should be added to the screen?
Lynn, do you want to answer that?
So, essentially, when the screen is a preventative measure, it's there to anticipate conflicts of interest. It's not there for the Prime Minister to avoid a conflict of interest. So, for all intents and purposes, if a matter is brought to the Prime Minister's attention, and the Prime Minister is aware that it would further the private interests of Brookfield, then he would have to recuse, even if the screen did not capture that item because it's not on the annex.
I understand how the screen works. Yeah. I'm just asking, why will you undertake, or are you intending to get a list of those companies in light of Mr. Bieber's testimony? That was my question.
Okay.
Well, of course, we looked at these companies and to make sure we know what's the interest of, and most of them, as Mr. Bieber said, are de minimis. Okay. But any kind of deferred compensation that you
are taking Brookfield at their word.
I'm going to have to cut it off there. Mr. Saini, you have 5 minutes. Go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning, and thank you for coming. Mr. Cooper had made statements which are contrary to what Mr. Bieber has said. Mr. Bieber said, yes, they may own 2,000.
We'll only watch a second of this. It's just to kind of realize like how bad some of the Liberal MPs are. This guy can't remember like where his teeth are. It's ridiculous.
Companies, but only 105 of them are directly related to the conflict that it could occur. So for Mr. Cooper to continue repeating something that he was told is not correct. Not only that, the other 1,900 companies, they are not even in Canada. They are all over the world. They are limited partnership who own their own assets and do their own thing. I would like to hear your comments on that.
Well,
from one criminal to another.
What is listed here, as he said, the companies which he had a management position or oversight role, these are listed there. The first 5 are the key. Everything after 5 is really part of the Brookfield Global Transition Fund, and and then in B and C are those which we came up with by looking at the lobbyist registration and by looking at the web and seeing what there is about Brookfield owning. But all of these are minimal, and then some of them may operate in Canada, some of them may not. The key are the first 5 companies on Annex A. And
Mr. Barrett, followed by Mr. Saray, and I think we're going to go back to Mr. Cooper for 5, and then we'll finish it off over here for 5. Mr. Barrett for 5. Go ahead.
I want to touch on the question of the list of 2,000 companies. There's 103 that are on the screen. That information was not, as I understand it, initially provided to your office. And the question that I hear from people is, why aren't those other companies on the list? Mr. Cooper said, it's 95% of the companies on the list. So, how do we have confidence that the screen is complete, that it's working, if 95% of the companies are missing?
You have here the names. We were furnished, obviously, with the interest of Brookfield or Brookfield Asset Management or etc. in those companies. And so on that basis, we can those are given to us confidentially. It's such a long list, but most of them, as Brookfield pointed out, it's a minimal interest.
So that's interesting. I mean, these are huge companies, highly successful. Brookfield doesn't really seem to be in the de minimis business. So how are we defining de minimis? Wouldn't it just be easier for you to include the companies as part of the screen?
You include them if there's a likelihood of if they're being affected by their decision. I don't know how else to explain it. If we make the decision saying seeing the interest in those companies and saying
Did you say previously you don't have the full list, though, sir? And my question is, if you don't have the list, how can we make a determination? How can you make a determination if?
I'm sorry.
You don't
What list
know?
are we talking about? Are you talking about Annex A of the screen?
Well, no, we're talking about the 2,000 companies that in Mr. Bieber's testimony he referenced, and then later in his response to the committee that you were aware of. I inferred from your response, you're aware of his response, that these companies were referred to as de minimis. Well, are you to take them at their word? Or would it not be in the public interest to just to include the totality of the entities that might create a conflict, where Mr. Carney may stand to make money from decisions that he takes that benefit those companies?
I'm sorry, you're losing me. We are looking here at the conflict of interest scheme of Mark Carney. It's by him. He testified. He in effect signed this, and he lists saying these companies. He suggests that here he had a management position or oversight role in the activity prior to Jennifer, and he lists 25 of those. After number 5, 6 to the end are basically subsidiaries or part of the Global Transition Fund, and that's why they're listed here.
Okay.
And then he also lists other companies that have been lobbied. So I don't understand where the 2000s
I'm limited on
come.
time. I want to circle back to the question that another member asked about depoliticizing, de-risking this for Canadians. We've said before, I have said before that I believe that the sale of controlled assets by someone who seeks to be prime minister, is it complicated? Absolutely. But is it possible? As confirmed in this case by Brookfield? Absolutely. And as mentioned by a previous witness at this committee, there are steps to take. I mean, the cost of the administration of the screen is covered, it's paid for by the taxpayer. So too could the government waive the tax liability on the sale of these assets so that we don't have this question. Is it 95%? Is it 100%? Shouldn't they just sell these controlled assets? And we can continue to attract good people to public office?
20 seconds
There's also
or
a
less.
question of the valuation, not only tax liability. Lots of these are future earnings that will be determined on the performance of Brookfield. How do you value those?
Even Brookfield said that they could arrive at that. And I think that when we're talking about the public's confidence in our democratic institutions, we should be able to figure out the tough questions so that we can avoid the murkiness that seems to persist here.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett.
Madam Speaker, we thought Justin Trudeau ran things like Fidel Castro, but this Prime Minister said, "Hold my champagne." When Canadians are screaming that there's no democracy happening under these Liberals, the Prime Minister says, "Who cares?" Because the Liberals are now trying to ram a 630-plus page BIA Budget Implementation Act through this House without the proper scrutiny, without the proper consultations, without any type of accountability or transparency. They want the opposition to give them free reins on this massive spend that they want to put and basically put in debt each Canadian household $5,400 when Canadians are already struggling. To those 2.2 million Canadians visiting a food bank every single month because of failed Liberal policies, this budget says, here's another $5,400. To those same families, because of the industrial carbon tax that they want to increase, it means another $1,000 extra for groceries this year and next year. When paychecks are not as strong as they used to be because of this government's failed policies, it doesn't help those young Canadians get into housing. Because under this government, they spend more on the bureaucracy, which means they block housing. And in this budget, it's clear to those young Canadians who have given up on the dream of home ownership that it's going to be even more impossible for them to get a home. They'll be stuck in their parents' basements because they're creating a fourth bureaucracy when the first three cost them $89 billion, and the result of that was doubled housing costs, double rents, double mortgages, and housing starts are going down year after year. This is the record.
To Ms. Khalid for 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to the witnesses for being here today. Much appreciated all of your work in this space. I'll start with Ms. Gilmore. Ms. Gilmore, when we talk about anti-feminist ideology and indoctrination by, and it's an organization or organized in a certain way, who are the they? Who is organizing all of this?
Well, there's a lot of money in it. And it's not necessarily organized always in the sense that there's a traditional structure to it. But, you can argue that the profit model and incentive structure that's created through social media and through the ways in which these figures can take advantage of creative ways of achieving virality is sort of the institutional structure that creates an atmosphere where these people can thrive. And, Andrew Tate's a great example where he was actually deplatformed initially, but he's been able to thrive despite that because he told his followers, when I'm deplatformed, take my clips and post them everywhere. He gave his followers permission to do that, and he encouraged them to do that, so that actually there was this sort of perverse reaction that ended up happening where when he was deplatformed, he exploded even more. So, but the they is, these tech platforms, the alt media, there's all kinds of alternative platforms that when an individual is deplatformed from a more mainstream one still allows them to reach an audience. It's I wouldn't say it's organized in a traditional sense, but there's absolutely a lot of different hands in the pot here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, you spoke about Andrew Tate, and there are many others that are like him. What makes young people so vulnerable to be so susceptible to that message, do you think?
I asked an academic who studies these issues that exact question about Andrew Tate on my podcast not long ago. And what he told me is that a lot of these young people, young men, want someone to tell them how to be a man in this society. And guys like Andrew Tate claim to have an answer to that. And they also package their content in such a way that it's very difficult to navigate some of the moderation, because when he's just doing his, fighter bodybuilding stuff, that isn't the kind of thing that you can take down. But it's a soft entry point that eventually leads these people who are consuming fitness content, as you mentioned earlier, to this pipeline towards this deeper radicalization. So I think that it's difficult because the fact that these guys exist and present themselves as role models for those young men on how to be men is something that we really need to have a counterbalance to. And frankly, I think we need to disrupt the notion that this is in any way what manhood is.
Are you implying that these influencers or role models, quote unquote, take the vulnerability of young men to make money for themselves?
Definitely. Oh, yeah, absolutely. All of this is a grift. Like, these are not, I mean, some of them are ideologues, sure, but there's a lot of people who have figured out that there's a ton of money in exploiting people's fear, their insecurity, it's a scary world. It's overwhelming. And there is a lot of money that you can make in telling people that you have all the answers and how they should live and can help them to get the girls, to get the money, to get the fast cars. And it's disgusting to me because there are real problems in this world that need to be addressed, but nothing that Andrew Tate offers will provide that redress.
Thank you. Ms. McKaylin, do you want to comment on that?
J'ajouterais que...
I'd add that we're living in a world with a lot of instability. The cost of living is going up. The prospects for young people are going down. It's hard to buy a house. The environment is catching fire. So young people are vulnerable. It's a good time for these influencers to seek out their attention because the distress that youth are experiencing is real and justified. We have to get interested in that distress because there's something real there. The solutions that they're getting is an easy solution, and it seems to give them a response to everything. But we need to get involved as well.
So here's the dichotomy for me here, is that, over my entire life, I don't recall women being given the accommodation of saying, oh, these are the reasons why this young woman or this girl is feeling the way that she is, right? And yet here we are having a whole study on why young men and boys are feeling the way that they are and are being indoctrinated the way that they are. So we are all, I think, agents of our own choices. So where is that balance between providing prevention support to young boys and men and holding them accountable for the shitty actions that they are taking oftentimes?
We're going to go to Ms. Nathan for the last 5 minutes of this panel.
Thank you.
Check this out. This is crazy.
Madam Chair, through you.
Stick with it.
Thank you, both of you, for being here and able to share your personal experiences as well. I wanted to ask V, is that how you say your name? Okay, Ms. McKinnon. We've observed political leaders deliberately targeting new immigrants, especially Muslim women. And also we've seen political leaders specifically targeting queer communities or particularly trans people by claiming they have only recognized two genders. Can you explain the implications of these messages? Who are they trying to appeal to and why they might be using this approach?
There
and
are
is it
two
working,
genders.
or what other communities are affected by it, especially young women?
Donc, juste m'assurer que j'ai...
I just want to make sure I've well understood your question. You want to know how policies that are transphobic can impact society and anti-feminism?
And specifically being vocal about this, because they're usually seen as community leaders, like leaders talking about this. So.
Je veux dire, les groupes des personnes trans...
Well, for trans people and non-binary people, they're being attacked continually, and I think that's within the context of the rise of the right and the rise of radical right-wing discourse, and those are marginalized groups that are trying to live their lives with dignity. I can't speak from experience, but there's been a lot of increase of violence towards those groups. Just today in the media, I saw that schools in Quebec will prevent teachers from being called other than Mr. or Mrs. So we're telling young people that gender is binary, they're only men or women, and we won't respect someone. We won't allow them dignity if they want to be called in a different way because they identify in a different way. So we're saying that masculinist and transphobic discourse is correct. And we're doing it in front of our young people. So yes, it's very worrying when political leaders have that kind of discourse.
And I don't know if you have anything to add to that. I know you've been harassed yourself. So.
Yeah, I mean,
Watch this. Listen.
I've been horrified seeing the virulent transphobic rhetoric that has been spread through society. I mean, even some politicians in our House of Commons have been saying disturbing things that have gotten them condemned by Egal Canada and other organizations. I mean, Pierre Poilievre's comments about trans folks have been egregious, saying that he's only aware of two genders. And I think that one of the massive issues within this is you're ultimately not only all of our rights are intertwined, and when you adjudicate the presentation of gender for, say, going to the bathroom, what you are doing is adjudicating who is going to be harassed in that bathroom. I'm a 6-foot-tall woman. If I go pee and there's a bathroom ban, are people going to speculate about my genitalia? Am I going to be harassed when I'm just trying to use the washroom? Anyone who doesn't present in a very effeminate way is going to face questions and harassment. They are open to that. So it's not only rigorously enforcing, the forms of gender expression that exist in our society, but also, even among cis women, they are going to be harassed for this. So all of our rights are intertwined, and it is essential that we fight for all of them.
Can you talk a little bit about the DEI movement, the anti-DEI movement, and how that is affecting women in general, especially young women?
Anti-DEI is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. You're opposing diversity and equity and inclusion. Why? What is wrong with any of those things? I think that there's a fundamental misunderstanding of how DEI operates in Canada as well. We tend not to use quotas, which is the aspect that is often attacked as, privileging certain groups over others. What we tend to do is just do audits of workplaces to ensure that everyone is having equality of opportunity. And I think that to attack these notions is a dog whistle to the worst elements of society that are seeing us slide towards a more fascistic world, and every politician who engages in that should be ashamed of themselves.
I'm so sorry, but that's the end of our time to our second round, and we'll go to Ms. Roberts for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for attending our meeting. Very interesting conversation. I have a question for both of you. With the rise of intimate partner violence up 76%, do you agree that the laws need to be tightened so that we can protect women?
An incredibly vague question. Do you have specifics?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you an example. We have a family that had a bond put against their daughter's partner, who was out on bail, not once, not twice, 3 times, and eventually killed her, shot her 4 times, once in the eye. My question is, how do we protect innocent women against men that instill violence? Do you not think that he should have been kept behind bars?
I mean, sorry. I was just going to say that, so are you specifically asking about tightening bail laws?
Yes.
Is that specifically? Yes. Okay. Because in the context of bail laws, I think that while there are aspects of the bail system that need reform. The bail system, currently in Ontario, I don't have the figures handy in my head right now, but my understanding is that there are more legally innocent people currently incarcerated than there are who have gone through the justice system and been found guilty and been incarcerated. So I'm not sure that just putting more people in the carceral system in that respect is necessarily the answer, but there are a lot of people who are more qualified to speak to the aspects of, tightening the bail system or not than me. But I will say that the ways.
All right, gang, we're going to cross over to question period now. I think it's starting to heat up, so we'll get right into that. We've got a Conservative MP up there, so we'll check that out.
The Liberals government is leaving them only misery and tariffs to eat. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I would just point out, however, that the member mentioned the proper name of another member in his statement, and that is outside the rules. We have to use titles or writing names. L'honorable député de...
The honourable member for Beauport-Limoilou.
Mr. Speaker, over the past few months, I've had the chance to meet some extraordinary women who are doing real good in their communities. And this year, we're proud to celebrate the 80th anniversary of the Dominican Missionary Adorers, located in the heart of my riding of Beauport-Limoilou. Founded in 1945 by Mother Julienne of the Rosary, the organization has played an essential role in our community for 8 decades. Through their action, commitment, and contribution to the well-being of the community, they've supported generations of people, promoted social development, and encouraged initiatives that foster solidarity. Their long legacy is a testament to their constant dedication to the people and families of our neighborhood. As we celebrate this 80th anniversary, we pay tribute to an institution that remains a pillar of Beauport-Limoilou and a lasting source of inspiration. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Grand Prairie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before this Prime Minister was elected, he said that half of all oil reserves should stay in the ground. But 2 weeks ago, when signing an MOU in the province of Alberta, he said that he's now supportive of a proposal to build an oil pipeline between Alberta and a northern British Columbia port. But now that he's returned to Ottawa, he's telling his Keep It in the Ground caucus not to worry, because this project is never going to get built. This Prime Minister has become a master at telling one group of people one thing and another group of people the complete opposite. But today in this House, Liberals are going to have an opportunity to finally tell Canadians where they actually stand. Will they vote yes to the very words that the Prime Minister wrote in the MOU to support a pipeline? Or are they going to vote no and clearly reject a proposal to build a pipeline that would finally cut Canadian dependence on the United States? Canadian voters and investors are watching. What's it going to be? It's simple. Do Liberals support this pipeline or not?
The Honourable Member for Mississauga, Erin Mills.
Mr. Speaker, today we welcome Team Canada's national cricket team to the House. That Canadian cricket is world class. Cricket in Canada has roots going back nearly 200 years, and it was Canada's first national sport. That legacy isn't just history. This team is carrying it forward. In 2025, Team Canada went unbeaten through the America's regional qualifier to earn their place at the 2026 ICC Men's T20 World Cup, our second straight qualification. With a new wave of homegrown talent and thriving local and national leagues, cricket is flourishing all across the country. Every year, cricket enthusiasts from across Canada come to Ottawa to raise awareness, advocate for the sport, and play cricket with parliamentarians. Team Canada is proving that Canadian cricket is stepping onto the world stage with ambition and a future that Canadians can cheer for. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Bravo.
Let's go.
The Honourable oral questions, questions orales, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Canada needs a pipeline to the Pacific so that we can sell more of our product outside of the United States to other countries, make our economy more independent, strengthen the Canadian dollar, and the purchasing power of all Canadians. The Prime Minister has always been against, but now, last week, he did an about-face in Alberta. But when he came back here, there was a rebellion in his caucus, so I took the words from his agreement. Is he going to vote for those words, or can't we believe his words? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Memorandum of Understanding is not something that you can pick and choose from. The opposition leader chose a few words, but not all the words. He forgot the industrial carbon price, the strengthening of that price. He forgot the methane regulations. He forgot net zero 2050. You have to eat the entire meal, not just the appetizer. Eat the entire meal. Well, That would be great if Canadians could buy a full meal, Mr. Speaker. But he's talking about a carbon tax that continues to apply on equipment for farmers, on fertilizer, on those who deliver foods to our stores. And it's causing food inflation to the point that it now is going to cost $17,000 to feed a family of 4 for a year. Why not get rid of these taxes on groceries so that Canadians can feed their families? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, there is no carbon tax on Canadian farms which have emissions below 50 kilotons. The impact of the industrial carbon tax on the price of food in Canada, according to the Climate Institute, is about 0.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, Canada needs a pipeline to the Pacific to sell $30 billion of our energy overseas, outside of the U.S. market, making us more independent, self-reliant, our dollar, and therefore Canadians' purchasing power stronger. The Prime Minister always opposed the pipeline, which his party killed, but last week he flip-flopped and promised while he was in Alberta in a deal that he would build such a pipeline. So I took the very wording right out of that deal and put it into a motion before the House of Commons. He experienced a massive rebellion in his own caucus, but if he's going to vote against his own words, how can Canadians ever believe his words?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
So arrogant.
Mr. Speaker, as the Canadian national cricket team knows, you've got to play the whole T20. That's right. It's not just a couple of overs. It's not just the pipeline. It's not just pathways. It is a price on industrial price on carbon that goes to $130 effective. It is reductions in methane. It is net zero 2050. It is building Alberta strong, Canada strong, durable, sustainable, and
the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
I took the wording for the motion right out of his deal. And if he votes against the motion, he's voting against the pipeline to the Pacific. He's voting against overriding the discriminatory and anti-Canadian ban on shipping our energy abroad. He's voting against consultation with the First Nations people and the British Columbia government, and he's even voting against his own beloved carbon capture and storage, all of which I took word for word right out of his own deal. So if the Prime Minister is only in favor of a pipeline when he's in Alberta, but against when he's in BC and Ottawa, how can Canadians even keep track of where he stands on anything?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to welcome the fact that to my hearing, for the first time ever in this House, the Leader of the Opposition has acknowledged the constitutional right of Indigenous people to full, free, and fair. For the first time, he's ever acknowledged the role of the provinces in the pipeline. But he hasn't acknowledged yet the need for an industrial carbon price or the reduction in methane, two things that the Premier of Alberta acknowledged, signed wholeheartedly as part of a complete meal.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, not only do we acknowledge the obligation to consult with our First Peoples, we put that right in the motion. It's there. It's right there. It's right there, Mark. It is. We put it right there so that he could vote for the words that he put in the agreement. Well, let's be honest. He never planned to honour the agreement. He whispered quietly to the Keep It in the Ground Liberal caucus, "Don't worry, there will never be a pipeline. We'll delay it until after the election, and then, God forbid, if we win," he says he would kill it altogether. Why can't he say one thing to all Canadians and champion the pipeline with us today?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the MOU between the Government of Canada and the Province of Alberta is about a pipeline. It is about carbon capture and storage. It is about interties with the clean electricity grid of British Columbia. It's about artificial intelligence data centers. It is about an industrial carbon price that works. It is about methane regulations that get methane down 75% so that we can have the lowest emission, low risk, lowest cost oil in the world and build this country.
The Leader of the Opposition.
We put the interties proposal right in the motion, right out of his deal. We put the carbon capture right in the motion, right out of his deal. We put the pipeline and the overriding of the oil shipping ban right in the motion. It came right out of the deal that he signed. So now it's clear that the only thing he really cares about is that it doesn't include an industrial carbon tax that will drive jobs out, drive grocery prices up. Why is it that he wants a carbon tax without a pipeline when what we really need is a pipeline without a carbon tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the grand reveal has been made. Mr. Speaker, I'm not a lifelong member of this House, so I don't know all the rules, but I don't think there's a limit on the size of motions. And in fact, since the MOU is already translated, I think it would be very easy to take the entire MOU in both official languages and propose them if the members opposite would support everything that the Premier of Alberta has done.
That's a very good question.
The honourable member. The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, we read this morning a letter from the former Minister of the Environment and former Minister of Heritage, and apparently he's not very happy, but still a member of the Liberal caucus, and he has described the setbacks and the problems with the agreement between the Prime Minister of Canada and the Premier of Alberta. What I need to know from the Prime Minister is he going to choose the environment and his own caucus, or is he going to choose the investors in the oil companies? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the government has chosen Canadians, the future of all Canadians. That means good jobs. That means a sustainable, prosperous economy with major investments in every form of energy and with a future for Quebec that is clean and prosperous. The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly. The Prime Minister's words are more cute than they are specific. Moving on to the religious exemption, does the Prime Minister agree with his Justice Minister? Or is he not in agreement with his Minister of Justice? Does he agree with the Justice Minister who seems to agree with the Bloc? So what I'd like to know is what is his position, and I think people have a right to understand his personal position. Does the Prime Minister, is he ready to respect religious minorities, or is he going to respect all Quebecers? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Bill C-9, which the member across the way is talking about, it's a bill that is there to protect religions. It's to protect temples, synagogues, churches, mosques. And I know that members of the Justice Committee are currently discussing changes, possible amendments to that law. The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly. So among the religions to be protected, is there Adil Sharkawi, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, we've learned that somebody who's close to the Prime Minister and who's close to the Liberal Party of Canada, we believe that it's just like in the Trudeau era, we've understood that this person has spoken out in favour of the discount drivers, the drivers who are dangerous on our roads. I'd like to ask the Prime Minister, is he going to serve the Friends of the Liberal Party, or is he going to serve Canadians and their safety? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Unacceptable words are always unacceptable, and that's clear. That's absolutely clear. We are working, and always working, to protect truckers. We are always working to protect rights, and that is why the government is tightening the rules for truckers.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, speaking of trucks, they take steel, unlike what the Prime Minister said when he asked a reporter whether he or anybody uses steel anymore in Canada. You know, farm equipment takes steel as well. And farming takes fertilizer. All of these things are taxed by the industrial carbon tax. Sorry I have to give this elementary lesson in the supply chain to the Prime Minister, but it is a reality. And with this tax, food prices have gone up so that Canadians now have to spend $17,000 a year on groceries. Before Christmas, will he get rid of that tax, or will he be the Grinch of the grocery store?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, for a fleeting moment there, I thought we were going to get another lecture on wood. We were all bracing ourselves over here for another one of those Leader of the Opposition lectures on wood. I do take his point on steel. Indeed, there is steel in farm equipment. Indeed, Canadian farmers are the best in the world. Indeed, our Minister of Agriculture and the entire government are rallying behind them to support our farmers, to support our steel workers, to support our economy, to build big projects with Alberta, with British Columbia. We're going to keep doing that, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Yet the Prime Minister is afraid to stand up and debate grocery prices. He says he knows so much about inflation. Well, he's certainly caused a lot in his life, Mr. Speaker. Then he should be able to stand up and defend the very industrial carbon tax that he says is even more important than a pipeline from Alberta. An industrial carbon tax on farm equipment, fertilizer, food processors, at a time when Canadians are paying twice what they were a decade ago for groceries. At Christmas time, will he do the right thing, get rid of this tax so Canadians can eat?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, let me make it really simple for the member opposite. The industrial...
we have to be able to hear the Minister. The Honourable Minister from the top, please.
On the top. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Apparently I need to repeat it again and again, so let me do that. To make it simple for the member opposite, the industrial carbon price does not increase the cost of food. It does not apply to farms. But more than that, if we're going to look at that food price report that he is referring to, perhaps he wants to refer to the other parts of it, which is climate change and weather events have become a growing concern for agricultural producers, and increasingly severe and unpredictable weather events are disrupting agricultural production, creating supply challenges that continue to influence food prices across Canada. They should get on board to fight climate change.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, no matter how high they raise the taxes, they're not going to change the weather, Mr. Speaker. And the Prime Minister should be willing to stand up before Christmas and look the seniors in the eye who can't afford to feed themselves, the single mothers who can't afford to feed their children and buy Christmas gifts this winter, while he not only does an industrial carbon taxes on farmers and fertilizer, but a food packaging tax, which will increase grocery prices by $1 billion across the land. So will the Prime Minister live up to his promise to be judged by the prices of the grocery store and get rid of those hidden Liberal taxes on food?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Family.
The Leader of the Opposition has said he doesn't want to do anything about climate change. He wants to talk about imaginary taxes. But when we want to do things for Canadians that are really struggling, as he points out, like, by the way, index in Canada child benefit to inflation, ensure that we have a strong school nutrition program, sign agreements on childcare that are saving families in Ontario $10,400 a year on average, Mr. Speaker, they vote against those supports. So which is it? They don't want to fight climate change. They don't want to stand up for Canadians. What are they doing here?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
stand up for Canadians, the Prime Minister won't even stand up in the House of Commons and answer a question about groceries. She calls, a moment ago, he was bragging about his industrial carbon tax. And now his minister says it's imaginary. So apparently the Prime Minister is imagining things again, Mr. Speaker. How can Canadians keep straight his story on grocery prices where one day he promises to be judged by the price of food, the next day he says we need more of a tax on food, and his own minister says it's all in his head.
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Family.
Actually, Mr. Speaker, what I said was it's all in that member's head, that there are no taxes on food, there are no taxes on farms. But rather than look for solutions, Mr. Speaker, they just throw roadblocks in the way of every single Canadian who knows that they need supports in difficult times. And by the way, Mr. Speaker, what Canadians are counting on is a government that will stand with them, that will make sure that when they don't have access to dental care, they can get their teeth fixed, that as a senior ages, their income will be geared to inflation, Mr. Speaker, that the Canada Child Benefit will keep up with the cost of living. And you know what, Mr. Speaker? Time and time again.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, as Canadians walk down grocery aisles week after week looking at prices rising to the point where they can no longer afford even to buy beef or put meat and potatoes on their dinner table, they see the Prime Minister who promised that he would be judged by the price at the grocery store, unwilling to even stand up and defend his appalling record of increasing grocery bills by $1,000 for the year to come. It's not just his industrial carbon tax. He's doubled the deficit Trudeau left behind, which will once again stoke inflation. Why is he forcing Canadians to feed his morbidly obese deficit rather than feeding their families?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, while that Conservative leader continues to spin the same old rhetoric, we've been focused on cutting taxes for 22 million Canadians. We cut the tax for first-time home buyers. We continue to lean in on affordability, school food programs, automatic federal benefits, the list goes on and on. Mr. Speaker, we are laser focused on this side on affordability. That Conservative leader and his party continues to spin the same old tired rhetoric time and time again. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, I'm glad that member got that off his chest, but the reality is that the question was for the Prime Minister. He's the one who promised to spend less, and yet he doubled the deficit that Justin Trudeau left behind. His deficit is $16 billion bigger than he promised. He's added about $90 billion of net new spending, most of it on governmental operations. And all of this will contribute to the inflation Canadians are paying at the grocery store. So why won't he stand up and take account for the food price inflation he's caused while Canadians struggle to put Christmas dinner on the table?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, newsflash, we're in a trade war. We need to work together. The government of Alberta supports this MOU in its entirety. The citizens of Alberta gave our Prime Minister 2 standing ovations in Calgary for this MOU. The only people who are divided on this are the Conservatives. They should get on board and build Canada.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Maybe we should tell that to the Liberal member for West Vancouver Sunshine Coast, the Liberal member for Vancouver Grenville, the Liberal member for Beaches East York, the Liberal member for Victoria, for Vancouver Quadra, South Surrey White Rock, Honoré Mercier, Fleetwood Port Kells, Laurier Ste. Marie, Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam, North Vancouver, Capilano. These are all the 11 Liberal MPs who have spoken out against the Prime Minister's deal, and instead of standing up to them, instead of standing up to the Leave It in the Ground Liberal caucus, he's backed down, put them back in charge, and blocked his own pipeline, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, every one of those 11 people, indeed every one of the 170 people on this side of the House who were elected to put Canadians to work, building major projects, building it with Canadian steel, Canadian lumber, Canadian aluminum, protecting our workers, protecting those most vulnerable, coming to the aid of families. 170 Liberal members on this side of the House supporting a strong Canada, a compassionate Canada, and we are completely united on all of that, Mr.
Speaker. The honourable member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, we wondered why the Liberals... The honourable member can start from the top. We don't hear very well. So he can go ahead. Mr. Speaker, we were wondering why the Liberals are protecting low-cost drivers by shifting their responsibilities to the provinces. Well, imagine this. One of the Prime Minister's closest organizers, Tej Dulat, works for the companies that hire these drivers. At the Prime Minister's swearing-in ceremony, this generous Liberal donor was even seated right next to him. No risk of confusing him with a lobbyist because he's not even listed in the lobbying registry. He's using his privileged relationship with the Prime Minister to defend discount drivers, even if it means putting lives at risk. Is that why the Liberals aren't doing anything on this file? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Mr. Speaker, it's this Prime Minister who has called on the CRA to crack down on these discount drivers. It's this Prime Minister who's ordered more inspections to make sure that the Canadian Labour Code is being respected. It's this Prime Minister who's making sure that trucking companies, legitimate trucking companies, can operate in Canada. And that's been recognized in a meeting that I had this morning with who? The Quebec Association of Truckers, who've congratulated the government for everything that has been done by this government. The honourable member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Quebec Truckers Association also says that there's a lot of things the government can still do to fix this file. When it comes to discount drivers, the Liberals once again appear to be protecting the interests of their friends. Unless it's the interests of their own pockets. Because in addition to the Prime Minister's organizer, who's lobbying unofficially, the Liberals have received $85,000 in donations from people linked to discount drivers. It's extremely worrying to see their inaction when road accidents have gone up by 35% in Quebec in just 1 year. If road safety is really a priority for the Liberals, how is it that the Bloc's 10 requests have not been applied? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Mr. Speaker, in all the actions that have been taken by the Prime Minister, by the Minister of Finance, by the Labour Minister and the Minister of Transport to crack down on these discount drivers, a regime that I would note was created by Mr. Harper, one thing has been missed, and I think that Mr. Plamondon is going to come and reproach the Bloc Québécois because the Bloc is asking for the federal government to interfere in the jurisdiction of the government of Quebec to fix their issues and their problems. Mr. Speaker, we're not going to do that.
The honourable member for Chilliwack Hope.
The Prime Minister can't be trusted on pipelines. He endorsed Justin Trudeau's cancellation of the approved Northern Gateway pipeline and stopped the shipment of Canadian oil through northern BC. Now he claims he might allow a new pipeline, but his Liberal MPs insist that it will never get built. Instead of playing both sides, the Prime Minister should definitively endorse a new pipeline to Canada's west coast and cancel the Liberal ban on shipping oil from northern BC. Will the Prime Minister finally stop the doublespeak, stop obstructing the pipeline, and vote for the Conservative motion today?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, for a future pipeline, it means diversifying our trade and greater competitiveness on a global scale. We need to put cards in our hand to fight this trade war. But there are things we need to do to get there. Things like, in the Memorandum of Understanding that we can get united behind, like the carbon price. The Conservative motion conveniently ignores strengthening industrial carbon pricing. The Leader opposes something that the Premier of Alberta agrees with. We support the entire MOU. We hope they will.
The Honourable Member for Chilliwack Hope.
Mr. Speaker, we'll take no lessons from a minister who conducts Indigenous consultations over Zoom. And we absolutely will oppose a carbon tax in all of its forms, Mr. Speaker. This Prime Minister has said that he told his Keep It in the Ground caucus that the pipeline will never happen, while he promises Albertans that it might. So today, he can finally come clean with Canadians and provide crystal clear clarity. He can support our motion, which is based on his MOU, vote to cancel his tanker ban, and greenlight a new pipeline. So why doesn't he get out of the way, stop obstructing the pipeline, and vote for our Conservative motion?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, what you're hearing from member opposite is exactly the problem with this MOU. It discounts several things. One, that in a federation, we work together. We work with provinces, we work with Indigenous communities to make things happen. Getting out of the way is only a strategy if you want to get nothing done. The way to get things done is to work together. And for every single member from British Columbia on the other side of the House, I ask, how can they support a motion that ignores British Columbia and British Columbians completely? They should be ashamed of themselves.
The honourable member for Calgary-Midnapore.
Today is a monumental day for Canada's energy sector and for my province of Alberta. We will see if the Liberals stand behind their Prime Minister's promise to build a pipeline for Canada, or will he do as his predecessor and submit to his Keep It in the Ground caucus. Families in my riding are worried that this Prime Minister is paying lip service once again and that these are empty words. And it's no surprise as to why, after how this government has destroyed the natural resources sector over the last decade. So will the Liberals stop obstructing a pipeline and vote for our motion? Or will Alberta have its hopes dashed again?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
Speaker, I think that honourable member should tell her constituents this, that this government was elected to do big things, that we are focused on making the largest infrastructure investment in Canadian history, Mr. Speaker. We're going to be building bridges, community centres, hospitals, transit, thousands of good-paying jobs, Mr. Speaker, with Canadian steel, Canadian lumber, Canadian aluminum, with Canadian skilled trades workers. But the Conservatives voted against every single part of this, Mr. Speaker. Voted against building houses, voted against major projects, voted against opportunities for youth. When will the Conservatives get on board, Mr. Speaker?
The honourable member for Calgary-Midnapore.
Well, this Prime Minister continues to talk out of both sides of his mouth. He has mastered his predecessor's art of saying one thing in one province and another thing in another. Albertans want the truth. In a pathetic display of misrepresentation, his own Calgary MP couldn't even defend the leading sector and source of livelihood for Calgarians. So will this Prime Minister stand in this House and tell the nation, tell Alberta, tell Calgary, and tell the member for Calgary Confederation that his government will not blame anyone else, not put this on anyone else, and that he will ensure a pipeline is built?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, the MOU is about building Canada strong. The people of Alberta, I was born in Calgary. I talk to Albertans every single day, and they know that our Prime Minister is bringing Canadians together to build big things, to build a stronger economy. Meanwhile, the Conservative leader has spent 20 years in this House, including as a minister, and has built nothing, continues to divide Canadians, continues to play political games. Mr. Speaker, now is not a time to play games. It's time for serious leadership to step up and build Canada strong.
The honourable member for Edmonton Northwest.
The Prime Minister is talking out of both sides of his mouth on pipelines and tanker bans. Behind closed doors, he whispers to the Liberal Keep It in the Ground caucus that the pipeline will never be built, while signing an MOU to build one for Canadians. The Liberals say they are for a tanker ban, but then the Prime Minister promised to override it in the MOU. The Prime Minister promises Indigenous communities a seat at the table for a pipeline, but has ignored them for the last 8 months and is cutting them out of the tripartite decision-making table. Wow. Will the Liberals stop obstructing the pipeline by voting for their own MOU?
The Honourable Minister of Indigenous Services.
Thank you. You know, I want to speak to what the Conservative Party claims this motion speaks to. While on one hand, they speak to half the sentence of respecting consultations for Indigenous people, they are also speaking on the other side of their mouth to the jurisprudence that would allow these projects to move forward. So I want to understand, what are they doing? Are they consulting or pushing projects forward? Because that's the concern of Indigenous people. That is what they're bringing to the table. That is what we're looking at when they come and work with us in partnership. And that is the future that they want to decide on with us.
The honourable member for Acadianapolis.
The Prime Minister said he would be judged by... The minister responsible for COA knows well that fisheries...
I was afraid this would happen. Not from the top, but he may continue.
Mr. Speaker, the minister responsible for COA knows well that fisheries, forestry and agriculture remain at the heart of Nova Scotia's economy. When the Atlantic Economic Panel was announced 2 weeks ago, were representatives from these sectors included? And could the minister tell us how he plans to ensure that these important industries will have a way to contribute to the panel's work?
Great question.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Conservative Shadow Minister for Economic Development in Atlantic Canada for being finally permitted to ask a question about Nova Scotia in the House of Commons. Mr. Speaker, it speaks volumes about the Conservative Party that since he has joined the government, they are yet to actually replace him and go without a voice from Atlantic Canada representing the economic interests of Atlantic Canada. Yes, we rely on these traditional industries that he cited in his question, but we've appointed a private sector-led panel of business leaders to shoot the path forward on energy, on defense, on clean tech to ensure we have good paying jobs.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
I think it's safe to say after all of that, the Prime Minister regrets telling Canadians that he's going to be judged by the prices at the grocery store.
That's right.
Because these prices are skyrocketing and it's only getting worse. Now 1 in 10 people in Toronto are using a food bank, and even full-time job holders have to use one too. Instead of getting full carts at the grocery store, Canadians get to watch trending TikTok videos about making what they're calling poverty meals. That's out of ramen and hot dogs. So can the Prime Minister seriously say, with a straight face, that this is the standard that he wants Canadians to live under?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Children and Youth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While the Prime Minister is delivering for Canadians, let's take a moment to reflect on the hypocrisy of the members opposite in this House. They voted against meals for children at school. They voted against $800 worth of savings for families through the school food program. They voted against dental care for seniors and for children. And they voted against saving parents thousands of dollars on childcare. If the members opposite want to talk about judgment, Mr. Speaker, they should start by looking at their own record. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Is that after a decade in power, let Ottawa feed your kids, they've already admitted their failure after 10 years. Let me put it in context, though, for that minister. The number of people using a food bank in Toronto alone could fill the Rogers Centre 8 times every single month. And with the average grocery bill set to rise by $1,000 next year, the government's $11 a year tax cut to those who need it most isn't going to cut it. So no, we will not vote for it. Instead of giving crumbs back to Canadians, why don't they cut the taxes off of food and let Canadians have a meal at home?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Here. Mr. Speaker, for starters, there is no tax on food. That's right. We can start there. Canadian families with children under 6 are receiving up to $8,000 a year, tax-free per child. This is a program that is tagged to inflation to meet and keep up with the cost of living. Good. Members opposite, year after year, vote against investments like the Canada Child Benefit. It is shameful. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
Canadians aren't asking for more government programs. They're just asking for the dignity and respect of being able to provide for themselves and their families. Right now, Canadians are struggling more than ever to be able to afford things. And in my riding, I just received a phone call from an elderly gentleman who shared with me that he's now down to 1 meal per day. And he's desperate. And he's without hope. And he's looking at this government and he's saying that they've abandoned him. And so he's looking for an answer. Will the Liberals simply repeat their tired talking points about big government programs and the food school program, or will they actually provide a real solution to Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Well, if you listen to the Conservatives over there, Mr. Speaker, there is no solution. The solution is sink or swim. If you can't afford to feed your family, oh well, too bad. The state's not there to take care of you. But here in Canada, we've always believed in taking care of each other. It's why we're known for our universal health care system around the world. And Mr. Speaker, we've built on that. We make sure that we take care of people who need food. We make sure that families who need extra help get the Canada Child Benefit. We make sure that if you're working poor, you get a working income tax benefit. Because why, Mr. Speaker? We believe that Canada is stronger when it includes all of us.
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
Again, Canadians are not asking for more government programs or to be spoken to in the manner that that minister just did. They are simply asking to be respected and empowered to be able to provide for themselves. And one of the best ways that this government can do that is by taking unnecessary taxes off of food. According to the latest report, food prices next year are going to go up by about $1,000 more per family. $1,000. There's a woman in my riding who recently reached out to me. She has 4 kids, and she relies on the food bank. She feels desperate and without hope. She just wants the dignity of being able to provide for her kids. Well, the Liberals here.
The Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Speaker, I think that you've heard it from this side, and we will keep on saying it. We are there to support Canadians, and you hear about the many programs that they voted against that we are putting in place to support Canadians. But if we're going to rely on that food report, also should look at what it said about, for example, the price of beef, which says nearly a decade of drought in the leading beef-producing area of Canada has resulted in the smallest number of cattle since the late 1980s. Reduced supply and consistent demand creates upward pressure. The cost of food is going up because of climate change. There is no tax on food, but we will be there to provide the programs to help Canadians.
The Honourable Member for York-Durham.
Here's a resident they're not supporting, Mr. Speaker. He wrote to me and said, quote, "I have lived in the same neighborhood for more than a decade, and almost every essential cost of living has increased dramatically." He had the receipts for his groceries from $200 a month to $600 a month. And what did the Prime Minister say? We should judge him by the price of groceries at the store. Well, that's some judgment, Mr. Speaker, some failure. And next year will get worse. Canadians will pay $1,000 or more, according to the Food Rights Report. Given those struggles, will the Prime Minister end his inflationary spending, scrap the carbon tax, and get rid of the new fuel tax?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, it's almost the holidays. Goodwill to all. The opposition leader says, nah, let's circle back next year after my leadership review. Meanwhile, hardworking Canadians wait for a well-earned tax break. They wait for a $50,000 first-time homebuyer's tax cut. Children wait for healthy meals at school. Families and seniors wait for affordable housing. And in addition to that member won't even stand up in this House and support the healthcare infrastructure fund that would build a hospital in Durham region that's badly needed for families. He should be ashamed of himself.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable, Lotbinière. The Prime Minister sat just across the way, made it a personal issue. He told Canadians that he wanted to be judged on the price of groceries. Irrespective of the excuses the Liberals keep repeating in the House today, it was the Prime Minister himself who decided what he wanted to be judged on. Well, not only has he failed miserably to bring prices down, but the bill will increase by another $1,000 next year. Why has the Prime Minister duped Canadians who are increasingly lining up at food banks because of his inflationary spending? The Honourable Minister for Government Transformation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's rather unfortunate to spend so much energy to be elected, only just to harp on the same thing over and over again, speaking points from their leader to answer. It's even sadder to see that they vote against the childcare benefits, against the school food program that is saving $800 for the most vulnerable families. They voted against affordable housing, Mr. Speaker. They voted against the dental care system. When he talks about inflationary spending, I would like him to tell us what he even means by that. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable, Lotbinière. Consultants, bureaucracy, all of that. No Liberals has stood up to defend the Prime Minister who said to Canadians, "You will judge me on the price of groceries." That is what he said. 36% of Quebecers face food insecurity, 3 million visits per month to food banks in Quebec. The Prime Minister's wealthy friends are certainly not affected by the reality of families skipping meals. They have enough money. They eat their fills. He promised to lower food prices. He misled Canadians. Will he stop his inflationary spending so that families can finally eat their fill, Mr. Speaker? The Honourable Minister. In the previous answer, Mr. Speaker, I listed everything against which they voted that supports people in his riding, Quebecers and Canadians from coast to coast to coast. We were elected to give opportunities to all Canadians and to all Quebecers, and that's what we're doing. 54,000 jobs created in November, 67,000 in October, 60,000 created in September. Unemployment is going down, inflation is going down, Mr. Speaker, because on this side of the House, we are building the strongest G7 economy. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister said that we needed to judge him on the cost of groceries. 8 months later, the price of food has exploded and families can't feed themselves. The 2026 report forecasts a worsening situation in Saguenay. 70 organizations that offer food assistance confirm that requests have gone up faster than what is available. When will the Prime Minister end his inflationary spending so that Canadians can eat their fill? The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House. Mr. Speaker, I would like to recognise how good my colleagues' local teams are, hockey-wise, but what he doesn't recognise is that no one in the Saguenay is saying, take these programs away. Remove the school food program. We don't like it. Remove support for organizations. We don't like it. Remove support for volunteers. We hate that. Remove the housing benefits. No one is saying that in the Saguenay, Mr. Speaker. The member should vote with us to keep these supports for the people of the Saguenay and elsewhere in our country. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals need to stop burying their heads in the sand, and they need to be aware of what is actually happening on the ground. The majority of requests now come from families where both parents work. We're no longer talking about single parents, and that's alarming. The Canadian Food Report predicts an additional $1,000 per year per family for food, one of the largest increases ever seen in our history. When will the government allow Canadians to finally feed themselves with dignity? The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons. Mr. Speaker, my colleague, the Minister for Public Services and Procurement, asked a very pertinent question earlier. What is an inflationary expenditure at the end of the day? Month after month, day after day, week after week, in these halls, we're asking, is it supporting aluminium workers? Is it helping kids eat at school? Is it helping people with their dental care? Is that inflationary spending? Is it health transfers to province? What is an inflationary spending? After all of these months, could we finally get a definition of an inflationary spending?
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg South Centre.
Mr. Speaker, in my father's dying days, he mustered the courage to stand in this chamber to fight for the passage of his private member's bill that set out a vision for the prairie provinces to continue playing their prominent role in our federation. That vision was realized with the passage of the Green Prairie Economy Act, which received royal assent shortly after his passing on December 12, 2022. Can the minister responsible for prairies share how the newly announced Prairie Partnership Initiative enhances this vision and establishes new opportunities for growth across Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
I want to thank the member for Winnipeg South Centre for his question and for his continued support as we advance the legacy that his father set in motion for a stronger prairie economy.
Here, here.
The Prairie Partnership Initiative is a new coordinated approach that gives significant prairie projects a clear pathway through the federal system so that they can move from ambition to action. By aligning federal expertise with prairie priorities, the PPI will help meet this critical moment by positioning the prairies at the...
The honourable member for Middlesex.
The Prime Minister told Canadians that he should be judged by prices at the grocery store. Well, Canadians have judged, and they're angry. When the Liberals came into office in 2015, the Canadian grocery bill was $159 a week. And after 10 years, it's more than doubled now to $338. Greg from Kamoka wrote me to say that he's sick of the rules for you and not for me attitude. Speaker, families can't afford meat and they're lining up at food banks while these Liberals continue to feast at public expense. So why does this Prime Minister think that he deserves luxury while Canadians can't afford lunch?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Sport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, watching the leader of the Conservative Party lose in slow motion today has been a little bit amusing, but what's more interesting is watching him do it with a big grin on his face because he's so proud of himself. He's proud to vote against childcare, and he's proud to vote against school food programs, and he's so proud to vote against affordable housing. But what else he's proud of today, he's also proud to call climate change just weather. And he's also proud to refer to Indigenous people with a possessive noun. They're not ours. Mr. Speaker, he seems very proud of himself, but you know what Canadians are proud of? They're proud of our institutions. They're proud of programs that support them, and they're proud of this side on this government. We're supporting them.
The honourable member for Middlesex, London.
And I say the Liberals should all be judged by the prices at the grocery store. Right. Bad Liberal policies are what's driving up the cost of food by $1,000 next year. Caitlin from Thames Centre says the government is driving us into systemic destruction at the cost of food, fuel and groceries soar. Elber from Strathroy asks why the Prime Minister promised cheaper groceries, safer streets and more homes, but after 7 months all he's delivered is higher prices, higher crime and less for hardworking Canadians. So do the Liberals even care that there's over 2.2 million visits to food banks, or are they just here to help Brookfield line the Prime Minister's pockets?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, there's no taxes on groceries. There's no taxes on food. There will never be taxes on groceries, and there will never be taxes on food. And that member's a farmer. She should know better. She should know that the industrial carbon price has absolutely no impact on the cost of groceries, Mr. Speaker. They keep talking about things like the price of coffee. Maybe they should stand up and talk about how industrial carbon pricing in Canada affects the Colombian price of coffee, Mr. Speaker. It's absurd, Mr. Speaker. They're very, very proud to vote against all these programs that support Canadians, but if they could just provide Canadians with one solution to help them at the grocery store over this holiday season. Merry Christmas. Yeah, truly, Merry Christmas.
The honourable member for Saskatoon South.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister told Canadians he should be judged by prices at the grocery store. Guess what, Mr. Speaker? I have a better idea. Come to my food bank. 23,000 visits a month at the Saskatoon Food Bank. And better yet, we have a resurgence of scurvy in northern Saskatchewan. The Canadian Food Price Report confirms additional $1,000 will be needed next year to feed a family of 4. So is the Prime Minister ready to remove the industrial carbon?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Rural Development.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Let's see what has this tired and old opposition accomplished in the last 10 years. Addressing food affordability, zero achievement. Addressing housing needs, zero achievement. Building major projects, zero achievement. Addressing challenge of tariff, zero achievement. But their negative attitude towards Canada must stop. Because if they don't stop attacking Canada, I'm saying today I'm going to take every single one of them off my Christmas card list.
The honourable member for Surrey Newton.
Mr. Speaker, last week the president of the Treasury Board held
and hosted a co-summit on reduction of the red tape, bringing together the leaders from across the country. Could the President update the House what came out of this summit and how this work will help cut red tape, speed up approvals, and strengthen Canada's economy?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. President, I would like to thank my colleague for this excellent question. The summit was an important step forward, building on the 60-day red tape review we launched in July. We recently announced a new series of horizontal reviews. These reviews look across government to eliminate regulatory barriers and deliver faster and more reliable services, so we can grow our economy faster and build Canada strong, and to build the strongest economy in the G7. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Griesbach.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister told Canadians he should be judged by prices at the grocery store. Well, 8 months later, those prices have skyrocketed. I've heard countless horror stories in Edmonton of families struggling to afford food. I've even heard of single moms selling their furniture online to pay for rent and groceries. Just this week, Miranda from North Edmonton told me, I honestly don't know how people are getting by. It's heat or eat. When will these Liberals cut their inflationary spending and gas the industrial carbon tax so Canadians can afford to eat?
The Honourable Secretary of State for C.
2025 winds down and we're reviewing our Spotify Wrapped. Let's look at the Conservatives' 2025 Wrapped. In 2025, the Conservatives lost their 4th election in a row, spent Alberta's money on a by-election so they could say they created at least one job, invented imaginary taxes, and presented a platform with no plan to support seniors or families. Mr. Speaker, they need to work on their playlist because they are not listening to the same tunes as Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver Kingsway.
The former Liberal Environment Minister says this government approved a bitumen pipeline that abandons Canada's climate goals and risks BC's coast. In this House, the Prime Minister said British Columbia and impacted First Nations must agree to this project. In BC, the Energy Minister claimed free, prior, and informed consent is required. But the MOU signed between Ottawa and Alberta says no such thing. Liberals are telling one story here, another in BC, and yet another in Alberta. Canadians deserve to know, is consent for this pipeline required or not?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister was very clear in this House. He said that the agreement requires agreement from British Columbia, requires the agreement of First Nations. That has been said in this House, and we stand by that right here, right now, and we will continue to.
The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One section of the enormous Bill C-15, over 600 pages of omnibus budget bill, that's not yet been even mentioned in this place, and it wasn't mentioned in the budget either. So the idea that the Budget Implementation Act just implements things in the budget is belied by pages 301 to 304, with it exempt at ministerial discretion the application of Canadian law to any entity, which could be people or corporations, at the discretion of the minister with no public oversight. Can anyone here, particularly the Minister of Finance, explain?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
I agree with the member that the budget bill is full of really great measures for this country, but one thing we can all acknowledge is that Canada has world-class innovators and entrepreneurs, those of whom will help us build the strongest economy in the G7. As part of that process, we're reducing red tape to broaden the use of something called regulatory sandboxes to help foster and spur research and development and innovation. We'll do this in a responsible way, in a forward-looking way, and in a temporary way. These will be authorizations that are limited, but these will help us keep up with the speed of innovation in this country. Thank you.
And that concludes question period.
All right, gang. So we're going to wrap it up there, except I've got one more piece I want to show. We're going to skip right into it. Aaron, Kennedy, and Looney, like, share, subscribe. Zip back on the timeline. If you started the show in the last 45 minutes, we had a couple of hours before then that were of great stuff that you'll probably never get to see again. I don't know who else shows this. Anyways, I show it here. Like, share, subscribe. Let's get into this one. Thank you all for watching. Rhonda Kirk, you're the best. Gang, thank you so much for hanging out, learning about Canadian federal politics. Let's learn some more. Here we go.
They love to mislead Canadians, painting a rosy picture that we've never had is so good. Tell that to the people in my riding who are lining up in record numbers at food banks. Tell that to a struggle. And stop the heckling. Stop the heckling.
Resuming debate.
Gang, what's up? Aaron, Kennedy, and Looney. We'll get right back to Larry Brock here in a minute. He is going to lose his composure a bit on Kevin Lamoureux. Who else? First, we're going to watch Chris Warkentin, who is the Conservative whip. We don't see this guy in the House of Commons speaking very often, but he is going to hammer down Kevin Lamoureux as well. He's a real problem in the House of Commons. All he ever does is mislead, divide, distract Canadians, push a liberal propaganda mandate to take away what we have from you into their bank accounts. It's simple as that. Let's kick it off here with Chris Warkentin. He is one to watch, and then we're going to check out Larry Brock. It gets hostile. Let's check it out. Let's go.
How many kids did you molest with Jeffrey Epstein?
Who cares?
A democracy is no longer a democracy if some citizens or corporations can evade the law without parliamentary say. This is a power grab, Madam Speaker. It's not progress, and it stinks. Now let's talk about the man at the top, Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister. The golden boy of global finance is now supposed to be Canada's champion. But here's the kicker. He still has skin in the game with Brookfield Asset Management. Share options, deferred units, and potentially tens of millions in carried interest from funds that he set up. Payments that will mature in 2032 and 2034, long after he's maybe even out of office. He chaired the board, launched their green transition funds, and this is where Brookfield will win big. Carney will cash in.
Knows we cannot use current members' names in the chamber.
You're right, Madam Speaker. The Prime Minister will cash in.
Hold the member on the point of order. Yes.
Yeah.
The honourable member for Hamilton.
Continuing to make false and defamatory statements against an identifiable member.
That is a matter for debate, and I'm not going to rule on that. The honourable member for
Madam Speaker, it's not just me that's calling out this bill for what it is. Democracy Watch called it a direct and significant financial conflict.
And I'm sorry, we're way over time. Questions and comments. The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. I found it very distasteful. In fact, quite frankly, when I listened to what the member said, he wants to feed into some sort of anger and generate anger. There is no corruption. There's a lot of transparency. There's a whole lot of accountability. Maybe the Conservative Party needs to look in the mirror, quite frankly. Because if they really and truly believed half of what they said, this bill would have passed to a committee stage where it could have been broken down, where you would have numerous standing committees dealing with it. There's nothing that's being hidden here other than a Conservative agenda, which is purely self-interested, where they have character assassination and make allegations that they cannot support. Madam Speaker, it's disgusting, and members should be ashamed of themselves.
Well, member for Grand Prairie.
Well, Madam Speaker, you know when you are above the target. When they send in the member from Winnipeg North to yell and scream and claim that he's hard done by. That's when we know that we're hovering over the target. Madam Speaker, I have met with families that can no longer afford to pay for the essentials. Heartbreakingly, it's a larger number than ever. And the honourable member will know these same stories. But I can tell you that what they also see is a free pass given again and again under these Liberals to their corporate friends, massive bail. He says, prove it, Madam Speaker. He's heckling, prove it. I can tell the honourable member. Look at the Stellantis contract. Was there a protection for Canadians as the Liberals dished out billions of dollars for their corporate friends? Absolutely not. When you look at the Algoma deal, 1,000 layoffs this past week, hundreds of millions of dollars being handed over to the company with no guarantee for the 1,000 people that have lost their job, Madam Speaker. What we see under this Liberal Party again.
Question.
Oh, yeah. So a little bit of a surprise that a guy like Chris Warkinen, the Conservative whip, isn't in front of the cameras often enough. But here's a guy that we do enjoy watching on camera. Larry Brock is going to mop the floor with Kevin Lamoureux, who's an embarrassment from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Shameless. Let's watch Larry Brock rock him.
Under this Prime Minister, Canada has now one of the weakest growth performances in the G7. Productivity is collapsing, and business investment is falling quarter after quarter. Nearly 1 in 5 part-time workers want full-time hours but cannot find them because the jobs simply are not there. Last month alone, Canada lost 9,400 full-time jobs. At the same time, nearly 30,000 Canadians over the age of 55 were forced into part-time work over the past year, with 10,000 just in the last month, as rising grocery bills push seniors back into the workforce. This is what an affordability crisis looks like on a pay stub. Canadians don't need accounting tricks, they need paychecks that they can live on.
Here, here.
Let's talk about the daycare failure. For young families trying to raise children in Canada, the problem gets even worse. The government loves to point out the $10 day daycare as a flagship success. But for families who can't find a space or are still paying double that, the branding means nothing. Half of parents now report difficulty finding childcare. Nearly 1/3 of families are on wait lists. Over 3/4 of centres have wait lists, and 86% cannot find staff. Even the Auditor General confirmed that $10 a day promise is not the reality many families experience. Once again, this government announces a photo op and fails to deliver. The Prime Minister also promised to negotiate a win with the United States. Elbows up. Since that promise, tariffs have doubled, negotiations have stalled, and foundational industries face collapse. At Algoma Steel, 1,000 workers lost their jobs after $400 million in Liberal subsidies with no job guarantees. At Crofton, 375 workers lost their livelihoods. Last week, Canadians were also giving a stunning glimpse of how casually this government handles billions of taxpayer dollars when it was revealed that the Minister of Industry never even read the contract that handed $15 billion in subsidies to Stellantis, a deal she later defended after the company announced 3,000 job cuts. Think about that. $15 billion committed, thousands of workers laid off, and the minister responsible never reviewed the agreement. Complete and utter incompetence. That single moment says everything about this government's approach. No diligence before the check is written, no accountability after workers lose their jobs, and no consequences for those who sign away billions without even reading the fine print. When the government claimed it was separating operating and capital spending, Canadians were warned the books were being cooked. The Parliamentary Budget Officer confirmed exactly that. Capital investment was inflated by $94 billion. True capital spending is 30% lower than claimed. Corporate subsidies were falsely counted as investment. The operating budget will not balance itself for at least 5 years. The debt to GDP ratio is rising again. The new fiscal anchor has only a 7.5% chance of being met. Even with claimed savings, total new spending still rises $90 billion. That translates to $5,400 per family. Even the Fitch ratings warn that this budget erodes Canada's fiscal credibility. The Prime Minister also promised 500,000 new homes per year. The PBO exposed the real truth. Only 5,200 homes per year will be added. Build Canada Homes will construct just over 1,600 units annually. Rents will rise to over $2,000 per month for a two-bedroom unit. Instead of restoring the dream of home ownership, the Liberals are forcing Canadians into permanent renting status. Before this budget, Conservatives offered a clear, responsible plan and solution. Bring down the deficit to the level the Liberals promised, scrap the hidden taxes on food, end the inflation tax by cutting government waste, restore housing supply by cutting red tape and development charges. Every single one was rejected. Madam Speaker, this is how the most expensive Prime Minister this country has ever had, and Canadians are paying the bill at the grocery store, at the rent counter, and on their credit cards. Every dollar they spend comes from Canadian pockets. The more they spend, the higher food costs rise, the higher rent rises, the higher interest payment rises. Canadians now spend more on debt interest than on health care transfers. Conservatives will not and cannot support this costly budget. We will continue to fight for an affordable budget, paychecks that beat inflation, home peoples can buy, food families can afford, and an economy that rewards hard work again. Canadians have simply sacrificed enough after 10 years of failed leadership. It is time to end the Liberals' out-of-control spending and bring home an affordable budget for all Canadians. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Permanent Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. As you know, just a number of months ago, Canada elected a new Prime Minister, a new government, and I tell you, when I reflect in terms of what it is that the member has actually said, he makes and raises concerns about jobs. You know, in the last 3 months, we've seen in excess of 50,000 jobs created in each of the last 3 months. That is the reality of it. And when you talk about productivity, and the Conservatives have been talking a lot about productivity, one of the greatest gains in productivity is in our manufacturing industry. And of course they don't reference those sorts of things. But my real beef with the Conservative Party of Canada today is how self-serving they are in regards to their own political best interest. We just had another member that stood up and spoke about the bail reform legislation and somehow tried to imply that it was the Liberals that were preventing it. Whether it's the budget bill or it's the bail reform bill, Canadians understand and need to know that it is the Conservative Party of Canada that's preventing its passage.
The Honourable Member for Brantford, Brent South Six Nations.
The level of hypocrisy coming from that member, Madam Speaker, is absolutely through the roof. I am a proud member of the Justice Committee. I'm the Vice Chair of the Justice Committee, and he should be absolutely ashamed, and every member of the Liberal government ashamed at what is happening at the Justice Committee. Stalling, filibustering, cancelling meetings without notice at the very last minute, not scheduling any meetings this week, the very last week of our sitting. Wow. They don't have the audacity to put together a meeting. So he needs to look himself in the mirror and say, we have failed Canadians. We are not delivering on the promise of bail reform because we are dragging our heels.
Here, here.
The Honourable Member for Laurentides-Labelle. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think it's time we took a break. The Honourable Member for Laurentides-Labelle has the floor. She has a question to ask, so would people make it possible for everyone to hear? The Honourable Member, I wanted to say something positive. It's the World Cup in Mont-Tremblant, and Valérie Grenier was on the podium. She won the bronze. And that's someone from Laurentides-Labelle, so it always does some good to hear something positive. So I think I'd just take this a little, it'll be good for us to take a little break, eat some turkey, and when we come back, we can look at the 634 pages of the budget. But meanwhile, I'd like to hear from my colleague. With this Carney oil shift, you're not allowed to say a member's name. Sorry, Madam Speaker. I'd like my colleague to explain if he's going to keep voting against the budget when we know that the current Prime Minister has really shifted in favor of oil and gas. The honourable member for Brantford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank my honourable friend for that question, and I offer my congratulations to the member and her riding for that stellar performance and that win. On the issue of the Prime Minister flip-flopping, the Prime Minister wrote a book called Values. He was absolutely against everything that he is promising now to Canadians. So spare me, with all due respect to my friend, I have some deep reservations as to his true motive. Is this ultimately going to benefit Brookfield in the end? Because wherever he goes, 4 times around the world, meeting with world leaders and stakeholders in Canada and stakeholders in the U.S., Brookfield is not too far behind. He's always at the ready to take a phone call. So I really question his sincerity with everything that he has announced so far.
The honourable member for Swift Current, Grasslands, Kindersley.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And earlier in the chamber, we had a member accuse one of our members of misinformation. And this is a continuing trend that we see with the Liberals. Conservatives bring facts to the debate. And if the Liberals don't believe us, all they got to do is open a newspaper or read the news on their phone or watch TV. Because we get a lot of our facts and information from that. But it's also from all the research and the hours that we spend doing the research, Madam Speaker. We work very hard on doing this. And yet they get up here and try to gaslight Canadians by saying, oh, they're deliberately spreading misinformation, but yet they never say what we said was wrong. Well, I wonder if the member actually could provide some insight as to why he thinks that they would want to do that.
A member for Brantford, Brent, South Six Nations.
Because that's their formula. They love to mislead Canadians, painting a rosy picture that we've never had is so good. Tell that to the people in my riding who are lining up in record numbers at food banks. Tell that to a struggle. And stop the heckling. Stop the heckling.
Resuming debate. The honourable.
You should do exercises. That's important to our good health. And friends, tomorrow we are going to be visiting with a fisherman who will tell us about his very enjoyable hobby. Now, I would like to see you all through our magic mirror. Romper bumper, stomper boo, tell me, do. Magic mirror, please tell me today, did all of my friends have fun at play? I see all of my friends in Alberta. It's nice to see you. And I see Dan and Vivian. I see Marlon and Mona. I see Catherine and Harley. I see Anne and Elizabeth and Jane. I see Bert and Nicole. And I see you too. I hope to see you tomorrow, right here in Romper Room.
Bing bong, knock knock, hey daddy do. Bing bong, tick tock, bebop boom.
Kick off your weekend with exciting CFL action when the Edmonton Eskimos tackle the BC Lions in Vancouver. Tomorrow night at 10:30 on CFTO TV.